Welcome to Blender Frenzy. I am Justin, and we are about to make that little borderline animation thing that you just saw. Now, I also got a new webcam, and the quality is a lot better than my laptop webcam. So this is a standalone USB webcam, and I'm really loving it. Although I did have to um, put the resolution down several notches, so it's still not quite the quality that it could be. But for the purposes of recording and having Blender on the screen and all of that stuff too, for smooth playback, I had to do that. But hopefully it will seem a little bit more clear. I won't be purple or fuzzy or whatever. Maybe you guys like those effects, but I was sick of it, so I got a new webcam. Anyway, that's not the point of this. The point of this is the animation. So let's go ahead and get right into that. So okay, here we go. So I've got a little uh, head bubble right here for your viewing pleasure. But anyway, so this is what you see in Blender as the defaults, and I'm just going to first click the light and delete that. And then I want to click my camera because we want to make sure our camera is going to emulate a two-dimensional view. So first thing we want to do is press Alt-R to clear that rotation, and then Alt-G to clear the location. And it's under that little default cube there. Just press G and then Z to lock it to the Z. We're going to move that up, but I'm just going to type 20 to make sure that that is 20. Oh yeah, there we go. So if you scroll out with your middle mouse wheel, you can see that is where our camera is. So I'm going to press 0 to go into camera mode. And the first thing you notice is that if you press the middle mouse button and then drag, it rotates the view. So it just pops you back into 3D view and out of the camera view. Now, I want to change that. By default, if I press 0 again to go back into camera view, I can avoid that by pressing Shift and then middle mouse, and that pans the view. Now that's okay if you want to keep it that way. I don't like that because I want to just be able to middle click and have that pan the view. So I'm going to basically switch the two. So to do that, I'm going to go up to Edit, Preferences, down to Key Map, and then where it says Name here, I'm going to type in Pan View. Enter, and you have a whole bunch of different options. Go to the 3D view and then click where it says Shift middle mouse. You can see that here. Let me just drag that out just a little bit here. So Shift middle mouse, I'm going to click that and it says press a key. I'm just going to press my middle mouse and now it just says middle mouse. So if I come back over here and I press my middle mouse, oh, it still rotates. That's because we haven't changed our rotation. So let's press 0 again. I'm going to go back to my preferences here. And then instead of pan view, I'm going to type rotate view, and then only the 3D view comes up. And you can see that middle mouse here is still taking precedence. So I'm going to click that. It says press a key. I'm going to press and hold Shift and then middle mouse. And now that is Shift middle mouse. So if all is well, I can middle mouse to pan and then Shift middle mouse to rotate the view if I need to. So cool, that's what I want. So 0 there. Now we need to do a couple more things here. So make sure your camera is still selected. You see that orange around it, or you can come up here to the outliner and select your camera. Go down to your camera object data properties tab. Under lens type, change perspective to orthographic. This is going to be, orthographic means there's no perspective, which essentially is going to mean it's two-dimensional. And then in the orthographic scale, I'm going to type 20 and enter. We're almost done here. I just want to change the scale of the grid. So you can see if I zoom in here, it's just basically these big grid boxes. So I'm going to go up to overlays to the drop down where it says scale. I'm going to click on the scale and type 0.05, enter. And now we have little grid squares in bigger grid squares. So it's the different scale there. Let's zoom back out here. And I think we're about ready to go. I'm going to save this as, and you can save this as whatever you want. I just save it to my tutorials files. And there we go. Now we're ready to go. So we've got our middle mouse to pan and our scaling is set. So I'm going to select the default cube, press X to delete, and then click delete. Shift A to add in, and we're going to go to a curve, and then we're going to choose Bezier Curve here. And it's really small, so if I middle mouse scroll to zoom in, I can see that all the way down there. We want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to press S to scale and then just type 5, enter. And now let's go into edit mode by pressing tab. And then you see this spiny looking thing here. And so basically these spines are arrows. They show the direction or the flow of the curve, which is going this way. So I'm just going to change that here a little bit, and I'm just going to go up to my overlays all the way down to curve edit mode. I'm going to disable the handles first of all, because I don't want those. And then the normals, you can disable them if you want, but it's kind of helpful to see which direction the curve is going. So I'm going to put my normals all the way down to 0.01. If you wanted to go smaller than that, you can type an integer in there, but I think 0.01 will work for now. And then with all of them selected, so just press A to make sure everything is selected. And then V is in Victor or vector, and that is what we're going to choose in this case. So vector, and now it's a straight line. Now with all of them selected, I'm going to press G and grab, and I'm going to move it up to this corner over here. And you can see that's going really smooth. So I'm going to right click to cancel that. And I forgot to turn on my snap, so I'm going to check that button. And then the one next to it, I'm going to make sure snap to increment is selected, and then absolute grid snap is checked. And now I press G and it snaps both of those points to that grid. I'm going to go all the way up in this corner. If you see, I'm using the grid lines as a reference. So the little grid squares are a little darker, and then the bigger grid squares are a little lighter. So if you can see the big squares, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 squares to make up this square here. And that's where I'm going to start here. I'm going to start at the top section of this square right here. Okay, so let's continue to draw our square curve. I'm going to select this by just clicking on that point, then press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude all the way to the red line here, and click to release, and then I'm going to press E to extrude again. And you can see again those arrows means I'm going down. That's the direction of the curve. And then E to extrude, I can't say that, to the middle here. E to extrude to this corner. And I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around. Oops, wrong button. E to extrude all the way around the square here. E to extrude. What am I pressing? Oh, rotate. I don't want to rotate. E, not R. All the way up. And then E to extrude all the way back to the center. All right. And if I tab out of edit mode into object mode, you can see we have a complete square. So we've got our square. Now we need an object to go around the square, and we're just going to add in another curve. So I'm going to press Shift A to add in another Bezier curve, and that brings that down here. I'm going to grab on the Y. If I press Y as a grab, grab is G, by the way, G and then Y, and move that up. I'm going to move that up one big grid square here, right there. And let's zoom in here a little bit. Tab to go into edit mode. And same thing here, we want to change to vector by pressing V. Make sure all of them are selected first, which means all of them are orange. And then I'm going to grab them as well and then move them over just one slightly like this. And then I'm going to select this point and then grab, and then by pressing G and then moving that in just one small grid square there. And then press tab to go out into object mode again. And I'm just middle mouse clicking and dragging to pan the view. That's what we had changed at the beginning. Okay, so let's give these two curves names. So I'm going to select our square and double click over here in our outliner and type border underscore line. You can call it whatever you want, but this is where the border line is going to go around. And then this curve is going to be our thickness. So I'm just going to type in thickness here and enter. I'm also going to open them up here, and the curve, you see the curve isn't actually changed the name. So if I double click that, I'm going to change them to the same name. And then come over here, double click that to type in border line there. And be careful if you check either of these curves, you can see it takes you into edit mode again. It's the same thing. If I click that, it toggles between object and edit mode just the same way tab does. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so let's make our thickness go around the square. So to do that, let's check our square and come to our object data properties, and let's close shape and close shape keys here, and then open up geometry. Down where it says bevel, the bevel object here, we're going to click this eyedropper tool and then click our thickness. Boom, and there you go. It has now created this little border around with a little like throwing star kind of shape in between, little hole there. But if I come to our bevel start and our bevel end, these sliders here, if I click and drag the end down, you can see what's happening. It's protruding or extruding that along that, the thickness along the square, which is exactly what we want. Well, not exactly. The reason, I actually don't know what the reason is for this little square, but I do know how to fix it. So come up over here to our shape, and then from 2D select, sorry, from 3D select 2D instead. Now, if nothing happens, that means maybe you have this curve still selected. So be mindful of which one you have selected here. So if you click 2D and nothing happens, maybe you still have your thickness selected. You can see that by this orange text here. So just make sure you have your border line selected when you do these here. And an easy way to kind of not get confused is to pin this. So with our borderline selected, I'm going to pin this in the corner here. And now it doesn't matter what I select. If I select our thickness, this still shows our borderline, which is what we want. Yeah, let's scroll down. Well, let's close the shape again, and let's do our bevel here. So now we can see that going around our square a little bit more smoothly, and now the outside and the inside of the square is square instead of different shapes. So in order to change the thickness, all we have to do is scale our thickness, which is why I called it that. So if I click our thickness and make sure that's selected and press S to scale, and then if I scale that down, you can see that it's changing the thickness. And if I keep going the opposite direction, it will go outwards and inwards. So now this is a little bit difficult to, I mean, not difficult per se, but it's kind of, you have to kind of select that, press S, and kind of, you can't really see how far you're going in because it's really small. So a better way to do it is press the in key to open up our transform panel and make sure item tab is selected. We have 3 tabs here. So item tab, open up your transform, and down here where it says scale, we're only concerned about the X axis, which is the left and right, this along this red line here. So we're going to go ahead and just lock the Y and the Z because they don't really do anything. And then if I take the X, and you can see that line going back and forth, and that is also now changing our thickness on our square. And it's easier to control from the slider here. And you can also just click and type in something. So 0.5 looks like this. If I do 0.3 maybe, yeah, let's just keep it at 0.3 for now, or maybe 0.2. 0.2 is probably better. Yeah, I like that. So something like that. And then let's check our little bevel here, and ta-da! We have something that's going around this square. Now, I do actually want to change a couple more things, because if you scroll in here, you notice as we're moving that slider for the bevel, you can see the edge here is not always straight. In fact, most of the time it's curved, or not curved, but at an angle. So, and then that's because the closer it gets to this corner, the more angled it is to a 45-degree angle. And then once it gets to that corner, it's pure 45. And then once it starts to go away from the angle, it gets more straight. And then it's the straightest at the middle here. But I don't like that. I mean, if that's something that doesn't bother you, then you've pretty much finished your border square there. Oh, my computer is going a little slow with everything that's happening right now. But yeah, I don't like that, so I'm going to change that. And in order to do that, we have to add more geometry. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that. I'm going to just make sure this bevel end is all the way down here. Can I select this? And it's hard to select the line. Once you have a bevel object, you can't really select that line unless you actually bring this out and actually select it like that, which, I don't like that much. But you can always select it in the outliner. So I'm going to select borderline here. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press the in key just to hide that panel for now. And I also don't need the gizmos, so I'm just going to click those and go away here. Make a cleaner interface. But I'm going to press A to select all of the vertices, and then right click, and then select subdivide. And I'm going to keep doing that. Oh, actually, you know what? I can come down here where it says subdivide, and it says the number of subdivisions. If I just press 10, then I have something that looks like this. And now if I go back out into object mode and go to our bevel end, you can see that has a lot more of the effect that I was going for. Here, let's just click out of this so we can see that a little bit better without the selection around it. So yeah, so now it stays straight until it gets to the corner, and then it starts to curve and then goes around like that. Now, I don't particularly like that either. This is okay. But there's a couple things wrong with it. If ever, let's see, if I try to, let's scale our thickness again. So, oops, wrong one. In, and let's scale that thickness down a little bit. And go around. I guess that's all right. But you just have some, uh, you could have some problems here in the corner when it's, depending on the thickness, I think, when it goes around. But anyway, that's not the main issue. The main issue is scaling. So let's bring this all the way up. And if I select it and then, well, let's bring our our thickness back to 0.2, I think I had it at. Yeah. And if I scroll out here a little bit, select it and press S to scale, and then I press X to scale on the X. If I scale it like this, you can see it's uneven. The sides are a lot thicker than the top and the bottom, and it's vice versa if you do it up and down. So I'm going to undo that. So uneven scaling. Now you could come in here into edit mode and select everything and do it that way to scale on the X, S and then X. And then you can see it doesn't change the thickness at all. But if you notice, if I do the bevel, it goes really fast on the bottoms and the top, but on the side it goes slow. And so if you if you try to do one smooth motion, you have it going really fast at the top, and then it slows down on the side, really fast at the bottom, slows down on the side. So that doesn't look quite right. And that's because if you go into edit mode, you can see it's denser here than it is here. So I'm going to undo that until I get back to my regular square if I can. There we go. A better way to do this is to limit the amount of geometry that you have, but just tighten it up. And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So I'm just going to select the corner and then shift select all of these other ones here, the initial ones that we made on the corners and in the middle here, because we don't want to delete those, but we want to delete everything else. And then with shift still selected, just drag a box around these two because there's two of them here, the start and the end. And then I'm going to press Control I to invert that selection, and then X to delete those vertices. Now we're back to where we started. And if you can't click and drag, just make sure you have select box mode on. All right, so let's get our bevel down to 0 here. And if I press A to select all of them, we're going to right click to subdivide again, but this time only once. And we're not going to change the cuts or the number of subdivisions. So what I'm doing now, if you're familiar with modeling, and especially corners, and you want to tighten up those corners of like a table or something, well, what you do is here. Let's um, basically you have the corner, and then you make two loop cuts on the side, and then you just kind of tighten those up on the corner. Well, I'm doing the exact same thing here, except for I'm going just to do it on our corner, each of our corners. So to do that, we select the corner piece here first, and then drag a box around the two that are on either side of it. And then if we press S to scale, you can see it scales in towards each other, but that's not exactly what we want. So I'm going to right click to cancel out of that. We want to scale them into the corner. So come up here to your pivot point and then choose active element. So the active element is white and the other two are orange. So if I press S, now it scales it in towards that corner, and you see it's tightening that corner. Now, I like to have them all at 0.005. So I'm just going to type 0.005 and enter, and then that tightens. And if you scale them all the way in, it's not going to have the effect that you want, because basically it's just going to be the same as if it was just one point there. And I don't know why, or maybe it does something. I can't remember exactly what it does, but there's a little glitch. So don't go all the way in, but the closer that you get to that point, the tighter that curve is going to be. So I'm going to do that with the rest of the points. So I'm going to select the corners and then box select the rest of them. Press S to scale, 0.005. Type that on the numpad, or you can type that on your number keys as well. Let's see. Just going to keep doing that all the way around. S.005. This and S.005. Enter. Okay, so now let's see what we have. Let's go out into object mode and then click away so that that orange border isn't there. And now we can see our borderline goes around, but oh my goodness, it looks ugly. It is having the effect that we want, but it looks absolutely terrible. So we have a little bit more tweaking to do. So the first thing that you notice is that it's black, well, there's a lot of Z fighting going on. So as it moves, you can see, what is all of this stuff here? That's just, basically that's Z fighting. You have a curve that is repeating itself a million times over. And that's not going to really work in shaded mode. So we're going to get out of shaded mode by coming up here. Here's shaded mode. We're going to go, solid mode, so that's has our shading in it. So then we're going to click the next one over, which is material preview mode. And it's a little slow on my computer, but so now nothing changed. Well, that's because this object doesn't have a material applied to it. So let's do that. We're going to have to unpin this borderline, make sure the borderline is selected, and then go down to our material tab and then click new material. And then I rename this here to matte underscore border underscore line. And then under surface, instead of principled, we want to change that to emission. And boom, now we have something that is emitting light in a sense. So if I click away, then it's almost this color, but you can see it's a little bit, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little bit faded. Not quite the bright white we see here. So what we want to do is come up to our render tab, and all the way down here at the color management, we want to change filmic to standard. And then that is going to make sure that that color is going to match. Now, make sure the display device is sRGB, view transform standard, look is none, exposure is 0, and gamma is 1. Okay, so we can go back to our material, and now they match. And if I click in our color, I can change that color to be whatever color that I want it to be. And make sure that strength is also on one to match that color. If I, you know, have a, let's see, yeah, like a darker kind of blue like this, but then if I up that strength, you can see it that changes the color. Um, Not entirely sure why, but just make sure that's one to match. And I'm going to bring this down to kind of a softer light blue-ish type color. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so we've got the color down, and if I go back over to my border line and pin that again, you can see we're almost done here, but I don't know if you can notice, but every time it stops at a corner, it stops at the corner. Uh, and that doesn't make for a smooth motion either. So it's like, meh, 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 meh. That's, I guess that's the sound it would make if it made a sound stopping at its corners. But this is actually a really easy fix. Right below our bevel start and end, we have bevel mapping, and just changed from resolution to spline on both of those. And now we do the bevel start and end. Oh, and that's a lot smoother. So there we go. And we have a smooth border animation. Well, it will be smooth on yours. It's not on mine because I'm recording this tutorial and I've got a lot of things open here. So, but yes, it's gonna be, yeah, you can kind of see now, it's smooth. Now the reason I like doing this is because then you can resize it to whatever size you want by going into edit mode and then just dragging these over on the grid here, like this. And it doesn't matter how big or small that square is, it'll still go around that just like it's supposed to. So I'm gonna change this a little bit. Let's change our scaling. I'm gonna change our scaling back to 1 for now, just because it's gonna be a little bit easier to snap to a little bit bigger grid size here. What do I want as far as grid size? I don't know. Let's see. Let's go. What do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then let's select our top and go. So that's 1, 2. Let's just do 2. Top and the bottom. All right. So yeah, something like that. Actually, I'm going to do 4 and 2. So bring that in. Bring this in here. Yeah, something like that. Let's change the thickness. So if I click thickness, press the N key to bring out that transform. Oh, I have it local. Oh, because it's in edit mode still. So tab back out to object mode. And then our thickness here. Nope. Why is that not? Oh, I must have had the borderline selected still. Anyway, thickness. Okay, and bring that out just a little bit more. Maybe something like that, 0.4, oh, 0.45. Okay, so let's add in some text. So add in some text to, where's the text? There it is. That's Shift A, by the way, to add in text. Tab with the text selected will let you edit it, so backspace. And then I'm going to type in all caps border, and then tab out into object mode. And with my text selected, I'm going to change this, but you see it's still pinned, so I'm going to unpin this. Make sure our object data tab is selected, this green A. And then I'm going to close the shape here if it's not already closed. Close geometry to and paragraph. So under paragraph alignment, I'm going to change this to the top one to center and this one to bottom baseline. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to press S to scale that up just a little bit. Yeah, something like that here. I'm kind of using the grid lines to help me here. And speaking of grid lines, I'm going to put this down to 0.5 for now. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. I'm going to press Shift D with the text selected to duplicate, and then right click to set it right here. Come over here to our vertical, and we're going to change that to top. And then that just makes sure that the center is on the top of the text. Okay, I'm going to press Tab and then backspace, and then I'm going to type in line and then Tab again. All right, let's size this up a little bit. So S to scale a little bit like that, and then S and then X to scale it out like this. Something like that. Yeah. I'm going to press Shift and select both of these. And then let's bring our scale back down a little bit, 0.05, just so that I can grab that on the Y. So G, I'm pressing G and then Y and just moving that up a little bit. Yeah, something like that. And now I'm going to select our line and go back to our materials, and I'm going to change this to a reddish type material. All the way red, and then bring down that saturation. Let's click out of that so we can see better here. So if I click out, then it's not selected anymore, but it's still active, so I can come back in here and bring that saturation and value down just a little bit here. Yeah, something like that is good. And then select our border text. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate that again. We're going to come up over here. And this time, let's go back to our text properties here. For the vertical, I'm going to also choose center. And then tab, and then we're going to backspace here and type the, tab again to go on to object mode, S to scale, and we're going to scale that down just a little bit here, something like that. And then I'm going to move that kind of in the middle of this borderline area here. Nope, that's too far down. Let's do, yeah, something like that. I think that's good. And now the last thing we're going to do is select our border line, press tab to go into edit mode, and then click and drag these around here, the start and the end. So if I take my end and I put it over here, let's hit X here just to scale it on the X. Something like that, and then I take our start, grab by G, and then X to scale, move that on the X axis and bring that all the way to here, something like that. All right, let's see what that looks like. I'm going to disable our overlays here. Let's select our text, make sure you're in object mode, and then grab on the X and just move that over just a little bit. Did that work? Yeah. And then this is all personal preference right now. I'm just tweaking things here. Grab that out a little bit. All right. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so make sure our border line is selected, and going back into our geometry and our bevel. Now you can see if I select or click and drag in our slider, we have whoosh, our text that goes around, or not text, our border line that goes around our border line. The border line. And yeah, it doesn't have to go from this point to this point. It could go the opposite direction if you do your bevel start. So it can go this way, around. And it's choppy for the video again because I'm still recording, but it should be pretty smooth for you. Or you can actually go all the way to the corner here. It doesn't have to be from the starting point. So let's say I want the starting point to be here. And by the way, if you're in these sliders and you press shift, it gives you a little bit more control. It makes it go a little bit slower. So you can kind of make sure that it's more accurate. So 0.456, if I hover my mouse over here and press Control C to copy that, and then Control V to paste it up here, now they're both starting at the same point down here. And if I animate these, going the opposite direction, then that means the start is going to go over to the start, and then the end is going to go over to the end from this corner here. And if you do it at the same time, it'll look like it's protruding out from this corner, which is another cool effect there. So yeah, so that is it. That is how you can create your own little border line animation. But if you want to do it even easier, you can use my rig. And let me just show you that here. This is just pretty much the same thing that we just did, but I have the fill, and I also have controls that you can use if I show overlays to drag and drop everything. So you don't have to click in and out of edit mode, select all of your points and move them one at a time. This just has a rig where you can move them to wherever you want, and then you have your slider controls here, so you don't have to go back and forth between different tabs and modes. Everything that you are going to be using should be here on the screen. But yeah, here's your thickness and your border line. You have your little starting and end point here that you can move around at the top. And same thing with the fill. So you have your fill corners that you can match up with your borderline animation here. And everything is animatable, animatable, animatable. And you can click and drag these individually or at the same time. But yeah, a whole bunch of different sliders and controls. You can change the colors here on the fly. Just really easy to create really quick border line animations for your titles, for your videos, or name tags like, for Justin, Blender Frenzy, whatever, or subscribe or something like that. And all you have to do to get my rig is to come over to courses.blenderfrenzy.com, which is my new course platform, and you can scroll down to watch the welcome video as the teaser trailer on it as well. But I explain what's all in on the platform so far, which are these two courses. Now, one of them is pre-order only. This is you fund me to make this, but the one that's pretty much ready. It's still in early access, but it's ready to download and use is the Easy Borders Early Access. And just click on that and it will take you to a description of the course, everything that's included in it, and you can scroll down to see everything that you'll be able to do in the course. You see you have these border sliders, and you have the color sliders, and you have the easy text, and it comes with several rigs. So it comes with, actually I should put those on there here too, but it comes with a square rig and a circle rig now, but then it also comes with a double square, double circle, and then a square circle together. All in blend files. There's no plugins that are required. It's all just right here. It's also, because it's in early access, it's half off. So right now it's going to be $15 just for that. And the other one too is half off as well for the pre-order. So if you want to know more about that, head on over to courses.blenderfrenzy.com. You can go up to the FAQ page to see if what the pre-order is all about and all of that stuff. I'll show you here real quick. So yeah, so lessons, Blender, purchasing a course, pre-ordering a course, and then basically in order to register, just click register, and in order to purchase a course, you have to register. So just click register, then fill out your details, and you will have the option to purchase your course. Okay, so I hope that's helpful, and in the next video, I will show you how to animate this border and overlay it onto one of your videos.